Great. So yeah, as we said, we're Innov 9 and we were tackling the open banking problem. So if we move on, just to introduce the three of us. We all met at graduate school here in Toronto and we've been friends for quite a while, and all of us have kind of a unique background in financial service. I'm kind of a regulatory person. Chris is more of a products and strategy, and Siddhartha is our data guy. So when we looked at this prompt, sort of three things really stuck out to us. So it was open banking, budgeting and services, and irregular incomes. And these are sort of the questions that we tried to solve through our approach. And when we looked at it, honestly, this struck us as more of a case study in need of a framework for analysis. And as an ex-consultant myself, like that's naturally where my head goes. So we made a three-pronged framework. Basically, who are the users? So in this case, irregular income, people with irregular incomes, what are their needs? And how can a regulatory framework and a market shift to meet their needs? And the reason we chose a framework was because Canada is so new to its journey in open banking. We thought that this is something that could be applied over and over again to multiple groups within the economy to really understand what kind of system we want to build here in Canada. So the regulatory, in terms of regulatory landscape, we basically have three choices that you can see on the screen. You can be a data principle focused jurisdiction, you can be a competition focused jurisdiction, or economic development focused. And Canada hasn't quite picked a lane yet, so this is something we took into consideration as we were evaluating our folks with irregular incomes. Chris, do you want to pick it up?
So like Roy said, irregular incomes, it's a really big and broad umbrella when it comes to looking at the Canadian labor market. We made a conscious decision to look at gig economy workers and freelancers, mainly because they're kind of two sides to a similar coin, in the sense that although both fall under the umbrella of irregular income, the financial outcomes that they're typically dealing with are different. So we wanted to identify points of commonality as well as points of difference when it comes to interacting with financial services. Likewise, when it came to figuring out and defining the service ecosystem in Canada, we conducted a market scan. Quick summary, there really isn't that many products available to folks with irregular incomes. Predominantly, you still need to have a full-time job and a Canadian credit history to be eligible. Conducted a design thinking workshop, which then was used to inform our pain point categories. And again, the pain point categories by no means is holistic, but it really does cover the top of mind issues that we felt were relevant to developing a matrix that Holly can speak more to about.
Yeah, so what we did with these pain points, and these again are specific to folks with irregular incomes, is we plotted them along an axis of impact to user and the actual feasibility of getting them done. And when we went through a design thinking workshop to really pick out of these pain points, what are the things that are actually most important to, our food delivery friend Bilal or our designer friend Stella. And in Bilal's case, we found that the biggest issue for him was that there was non-existent or poor fit products. And for Stella, it was that there was fragmented or bad documentation, which made it harder for her to file taxes and get her return in the end. And if you notice, this was actually a really interesting finding for us because it showed that it was very high impact, but really low feasibility in terms of the Canadian system as it stands right now. But, a lot of times when we talk about open banking, we often talk about it as this like panacea that can solve, all of our financial problems. But if you look over to the top right of the matrix, you can see that a lot of these things up here can actually be accomplished, by fixing or nudging the system we have now in very minute ways, or in a way that open banking is more supportive of rather than a solution to. So what we proposed with this framework was to run it multiple times with many different kinds of folks, because we're at a very nascent stage here in Canada with open banking, and to find out, where are those real pain points that end up in that top left-hand part of the matrix, so that we can use it as an information source to inform the design of the Canadian open banking system to come. So these were kind of our long-term priorities or policy solutions that we proposed. Essentially, we said Canada needs to pick a lane, decide what kind of open banking system it wants to have, a competition-focused one, a data principle-focused one, a economic development-focused one, And to do that, they need to really understand who benefits from a system like this. The governance needs to be clearly outlined. Like I've worked in quite a few different locations, and Canada has one of the more complex regulatory environments I've seen. So this is a really big one. We need to invest in technical architecture, like our friends who are developing the real-time rails. Like these really need to be in reality before open banking can really work in Canada. And finally, slightly controversial point, we need to spend money and time upskilling folks at the government and at the regulator and even in industry so that they both understand the kind of technology that's coming down the line and can actually regulate it, and make it impactful. So this is exciting. We're so glad that we won, and we really hope that OBIC sees it as something that they can use into the future.